Oh, thank you. Whoa, enough. Boy, I'm kind of nervous. I didn't expect this many people to show up here. I didn't think Mike's Mail would take off this quickly. Anyhow, welcome to the second edition of Mike's Mail, episode 2, April 19th, 2010. And I see some familiar faces out here, some people from around town, some from out of town too. Can't see much in those lights. Anyhow, we're at the Banff Springs Hotel, which is a lovely, lovely place. Hey, Glenn, before we get started, can you give people a little tour of the hotel with some of that footage you were shooting this afternoon? Yeah, maybe the front and the back, and it's just an incredible place. It's a beautiful, beautiful day today, and there's no better place to be than Banff any time of the year. But and the Banff Springs Hotel, it's a great place to bring your family, have a conference. If you're a scumbag, dirtbag climber like most of you out there, then might not be such a great place. Anyhow, let's get on with Mike's Mail. This week we have Mike's advice for a lasting relationship. Sawback WC was asking about that. There was a comment placed on ice screw angles. And what angle do we place ice screws and why? By McBonnock. And the next one would be Kids in the Outdoors by Domo888. So, Sawback writes, Dear Mike, I've been working as a guide for a couple of years now and starting to feel the strain of my relationship. I know you've been a guide for quite a while and travel a lot. Do you have any suggestions? Thanks, Tom. Well, Tom, I got 6 rules to love in relationships. Number 1, find a woman who makes you laugh. That's important, Tom. Find a woman who has a job and loves housework. That could be rare. Find a woman who is honest. There's another important one, Tom. Find a woman who will wait on you hand and foot, because if you're like me, I work really hard, and I know you do too. That can be quite handy. And most of all, find a woman who is awesome in bed. But above all of these other things, Tom, it's important that these 5 women never, ever meet each other under any circumstance. Okay? So those are my 6 rules. It's about all I can tell you. The next one, by Mr. Bannock, he writes on the climbing tools placing an ice screw on the YouTube site. And he does it in caps letters, so I think that means he's yelling at me. Anyhow, he says, do not place a screw at an upward 10 to 15 degree angle. Place in direction of pull, 10 to 15 degrees in a downward angle, and always remain clipped in when off belay. Well, that's probably not bad advice, the last part. This is backed up by Dave Forte. Dave, I'm afraid to say that dude in the block capitals is right. Have a look at what Roger Strong says on the UK climbing website. 10 degrees up is depending on the tube strength of the screw instead of the thread strength.
This actually is a textbook placement because we want to stay more in concave, just like we would when we're throwing an ice tool placement, so it limits the shattering. You can notice that on the inside there, there's hardly any shattering, where lots of the older school will shatter right out about to here. So it actually makes that placement a lot stronger. I'm going to go, but I'm not sure if it's going to go right to the rock here. I'll go slow right at the end because we don't want to dull. That's the rock. So if you notice, we used to place ice screws thinking that the strength was in the tube. We used to put them at an angle at about 10 degrees going down, but what we've learned in some testing about 12 years ago, the strongest placement is actually about 10 degrees, no more than 15 degrees going up. So the strength in good to reasonably good ice is actually in the threads in combination. So that way it's a lot less of a leverage point. Going down like this would actually leverage the ice weaker and weaken that point. And if you break in the event of a fall, it would break that ice below the first few centimeters and actually could potentially bend the ice screw. So,
well, to bring you guys up to speed, what we're talking about here is the angle that you're putting an ice screw in. And you really have 3 options. You can put it in at what they call a negative angle, which is placing it in so that it goes in from top down. A neutral angle is so that it goes straight in perpendicular to the ice, and a positive angle, it means you're placing it upwards, and the pull, the angle is the ice screw is placed at an angle where directly to the relation of where the pull is going to be, so at an upward angle. I always get a little mixed up with the negative and positive. Upwards is considered negative, and downwards is considered positive. It's kind of like, you know, when you're learning your first avalanche stuff, a strong temperature gradient leads to a weak snowpack, and a weak temperature gradient leads to a strong snowpack. So I guess it's just my thing. I got to get my head around that. Anyhow, the old norm was to place it, you know, at a negative angle, and the suggested new norm is to place it at a positive angle, meaning downwards, placing it upwards. There I go again. So anyhow, let's take a look at who was the first people, you know, because it was really news to a lot of us, right? You know, in the mid-90s when they came out and said, you know what, place your screw this way, it's going to be stronger. And times, it's hard to change, eh? And most people first heard of this idea via the ice screw testing by Craig Luebben and Chris Harmston, who dropped 185-pound mass. Luebben reports very poor results on aerated ice in some cases, pulling entire strings of ice resulting in a ground fall. However, there's not a lot of information on the exact methods of their testing. The later testing was by Chris Harmston, who worked quality control for Black Diamond. And his method of testing was a slow pull test at 12 centimeters per minute till failure. And you know, his observations showed that the screw generally caused cratering in the top 5 to 8 centimeters of the screw, which is, I think, something we already knew. And then leading to the bending of the screw, levering off the hanger and or breaking the tube, right? And then the tube was removed, and he placed beside it another 20 centimeters, because they used quite a big column. And this is cold room testing in California. So it's not exactly real world ice, but by placing 20 centimeters away another ice screw beside it and then testing it again next to the shattered ice was getting a little close to real world conditions. And this test was repeated up to 20 times. And it should be noted that in the evenings they would place water back into the column, filling up the ice screws, let it freeze, and then they would start their testing again, and then they would do this as many as 20 times before completely thawing it out and redoing their testing. The best information that I could find out there was a paper called Dynamic Shock Load Evaluation of Ice Screws, a real-world test by Mark J. Beverly and Stephen W. Attaway. And they found in ideal conditions, the negative and upward ice screw placements failed at quite a bit lower rate than placements that were at a neutral or at a positive placement. Although the best of the negative placements was coming pretty close to the neutral placements, the lower end of the neutral placements. The next, the neutral placements, however, is the ones that impressed me the most and I found the most interesting, because the high-end one, neutral placements, and the mid-range ones kind of hit where the lower positive placements, and everybody's like screaming, go positive, go positive. And the neutral placements were getting pretty close to that, and some of the high-end neutral placements were actually better than the low-end positive placements. So that was interesting. The next one would be the positive placements, or in the direction of pull, and that is showing, of course, increasingly better placements. But the thing is that it requires an ideal ice screw placement. Sort of to paraphrase Alex Lowe, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, you know, he says, in the end, I'm going to be using a combination of everything, right? So I'm going to be using pins, I'm going to be tying off blocks or icicles, and I'm going to be threading stuff, and I'm going to be putting in ice screws in whatever orientation that makes the most sense. And, you know, and I think that sort of concludes whatever the point we're trying to come to here is that whatever makes the most sense is what you're going to want to do, right? So I think the thing what I got out of all of these things is that it really is a judgment call on how you're going to place your ice screws. And that depends on experience and depending on the quality of the ice. And the quality of the ice is a quantitative thing based on experience, really. And I think probably what sums it up the best is a thing that I read by Alex Lowe, July 2nd, 1997. So let's go back quite a ways, 2007, 13 years ago. He writes to Chris Black Diamond, Chris, good work on the ice screw research. Having read it and thought about the mechanics it pulls along the axis of the screw as opposed to loading such that shearing through the ice plays a role. It makes intuitive sense that a screw placed in a positive angle should indeed hold better, but only in ideal ice conditions. That's the big qualifier. And of course, determining what constitutes ideal ice conditions is the art and essence of placing ice gear. I felt you made it rather clear in your article. My personal conclusion from your test is to place ice screws in a positive angle when I feel the ice is very solid. Now, obviously, some rather ill-defined terms in that statement, very solid, remain an intuitive assessment. But here are some of the attributes I associate with solid ice. And I won't go into that. I'll go to the show notes and look at the paper and go to the website. And it's worth reading. I mean, if you're going to stick around the ice climbing game, it's really good to know this stuff, I would think. I guess, in conclusion, what I'm saying here is I think you're going to have to think for yourself, right? So judge, your placement's going to be based on the quality of the ice at the environment that you're in at the moment. And that judgment's going to be based upon your experience, like how much, and how much ice climbing you've done. So it isn't correct to say only put ice screws upside down, like, in a positive position so they're pulling downwards. It isn't correct to say to only put them this way. I mean, that's the wrong thing to say. And it's incorrect to say only put them in a neutral position, right? So there's no one answer to the direction of the ice screw. The next point would be the children thing. I've got kind of like the two families. I've got two teenagers that are 14 and 15, and they're sort of into the outdoors right now, but they've discovered it for themselves. I was never one to really push them at it, and dragging them out in the freezing cold. And it's funny you should ask it now, because I think it was like not even 10 days ago, they went on their first ski mountaineering trip up to Bow Hut. And they really like that. They both, of course, have skied most of their lives, and ski reasonably well for their age. And actually, my older daughter skis faster than I do, but gets slowed down by deep powder. The younger daughter, Jax, has joined the climbing team, not by anything that I was doing or for any reason, but because her friends were on the sport climbing team, and so she discovered that on her own. And now she's in the competitions and on her way to Quebec City this spring to go regionals. So she's having fun. But I basically, their position is a little unique, since everybody they know their entire lives is either a mountain guide or a park warden or some sort of outdoorsy people. So, and living in a mountain town, they've had the opportunity to go out. Surprisingly, they're just typical teenagers. I have a 2.5-year-old whom I really enjoy taking out, and we spend about summertime maybe 3-4 hours a day just wandering around. And she volunteers to do little short roping training videos and things like that, whether she likes it or not. But she has a great time, and I'm pretty much going to take the same attitude with her and let the kids discover it for themselves. If their parents are into it, you find out more often than not. I think if you're enthusiastic, you enjoy it, then they'll just follow forth and maybe want to come along. You might have to cattle prod them once in a while to get them out and go do something interesting. I know that going hiking up at Lake O'Hare and stuff wasn't exactly, the first thing that my kids wanted to do, but they managed. So anyhow, folks, that's as much time as I have for this edition of Mike's Mail, and we'll hopefully see you at the next show in a week to 10 days. And I'll just leave you with a few scenes and my piano player buddy here at the Banff Springs Hotel. Okay, take care. Thanks. Nope. Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, so, and another thing is just remember what Will Gadd said there about, falling in the first place really isn't an option in ice climbing. I mean, because you've got all these sharp tools and appendages attached to you, and it's just not a good scenario, It's like, any way you look at it, it's not going to be good. Hey guys, I got an email the other day, somebody was asking me, hey, I have a 2.5-year-old kid, and I want to get into the outdoors. Do you have any advice for this guy?
Don't have a 2.5-year-old kid.
Don't have one?
Don't have a 2.5-year-old kid when you have a 14-year-old and a 15.
You're gonna place your
And a 15.
look at it. You're gonna place your look at it.
And a 15.